Okay, my camera has this thing where it's going to start rolling when I'm not paying attention now, so we're going to roll. And hopefully it goes better than the last time I tried to do a video, because it was kind of rough. Okay, so I just got done skating my 7 miles, and I was thinking that I'm really glad that since tomorrow is Christmas, that is ridiculously nice out lately. Let's see, we're at like, what, Wednesday, I think, and I have skated like 22 miles. And since tomorrow is a holiday in which I will be spending time with my family for quite probably the very last time, I am glad that I can skate afterwards. So hopefully it won't be especially rainy. There's like a 40% chance. Usually, even if it does rain, it's not too terribly bad, so I could still probably knock it out and not have a problem. And then too, it's probably not going to rain hard if it does. So, but that's my theory anyway. It usually hasn't been too much of a problem with my skating in the past when I have been skating obsessively, as I am back to doing currently. Today I went and spent, okay, so it's Christmas Eve, and for some reason my mom decided she was going to make lasagna and go over to my grandma's house, so we were going to eat with my grandma, and my aunt and uncle came over with garlic bread, so, we did that. So for Christmas Eve, that was today's thing. And my mom was on the phone with my niece when we went over there, and my grandma got to talk to her very, very briefly. And like as soon as they got off the phone, my grandma starts with she sounds like she's disappointed. It's like, based on what? Based on the fact that she just didn't want to talk to you? That's not, sounds like she made you disappointed, but that's not her being disappointed. Maybe at the fact that we were over there with my grandma at that point in time. So I don't know what of the situation Gracie necessarily picked up last year, because last year at Christmas time, it was shortly after my grandfather had passed, right? So he passed on December 3rd, and then I think the funeral was like the 7th or 8th or something, and my grandmother was royally pissed at my brother because he did not show up for the funeral. He and his family came to the visitation, but they did not go to the funeral the next day because Gracie had a school choir function. And she's autistic, and they weren't trying to make her, like, even if she wasn't, they weren't trying to make her have to miss this thing that she was looking forward to on account of her great-grandfather had passed away, right? So my brother had said, Gracie has this thing, so, won't be there. And for some reason, my mom and my grandma especially thought that should mean that Gracie and her mother were excused from the day, but my brother absolutely was not. But he didn't go because he would rather be with his daughter, right? So I think the next week after the funeral, my brother and sister-in-law took Gracie and went over to visit my grandma. And my grandma was a bitch. And she made this big deal about how it was just a bunch of bullshit. What she said was something to the effect of, sorry I didn't make it to Gracie's recital. It was Donnie and my anniversary, and that's more important. And my brother and sister-in-law were just like, isn't your anniversary in April? And she said, yeah, right? So, okay, there's the first thing. The second was, she wasn't invited to Gracie's choir concert. It's like, it was just like something the school was doing. Like, they went downtown to perform at the Arts Garden or something. So, she wasn't invited. And it wasn't what she was thinking it was anyway. But she specifically just said that to be a bitch. And I talked to my brother afterwards, And he said that it was really feeling like, there's nothing for him in this town. Like, he just doesn't belong here anymore. He's not welcome, right? Because the family was acting like that, right? Especially our mom and our grandmother. So I don't know what Gracie picked up of that situation. She was there. I don't know how much she was actually paying attention to. But I've always been of the mindset that that kid is taking things in, even if it's something that she might not be like completely cognizant of, she's still receiving the information from it, even when she's in the space, right? So I feel like, I'm sure there's some sort of carry on from that, because my grandma was being a bitch. And because, of course, my brother and sister-in-law had their conversations about it afterwards, and that was pretty much one of the things that solidified their plan to look for somewhere else to go, right? Because this town obviously was not welcoming anymore, as it had once been. It doesn't feel like home anymore, right? So I was very much a supporting factor for that. It's like, if you get the opportunity to leave, fucking leave. Do not stay here for this bullshit. And that is all it is, right? So my sister-in-law ended up taking a job out in Oklahoma in April, and she moved out there. I wanted to say she left the day before Easter, because she had to start the next day. And my brother and Gracie stayed up here because, she was still in school, finishing out the school year. They hadn't got their house sold yet. So my brother and the kid and the dogs were going to stay there, because my sister-in-law was moved in with her brother for a while. So, excuse me. At the end of July, I helped my brother get Gracie and the dogs out there, right? So he had a moving truck. He had all their stuff, or most of their stuff, in what my sister-in-law hadn't taken with her. And they had a house that they were really interested in, which was right next to her brother. And they ended up being able to get that house, but it was a process, because the people that wanted to buy their house here had to wait on somebody else to buy their house, right? So there's like this big chain that was like just keeping things kind of moving slowly. But yeah, so I've talked about my mom on here a whole lot too, she has the tendency to insert something as truth, and then if she says it enough, then you'll remember her saying it, and you'll think that you heard it too. Or you're more likely to, easily slide into that mistaken thought process. That's a hot mess. Anyway, one of those things, and she didn't catch me on it this time around, because I've been working on setting my boundaries and disconnecting from the family as much as possible. So when it was like 10:30 at night, I think, when we actually got on the road to go to Oklahoma, or at least it was 10. I think it was like 10:30 by the time we got to the interstate, because we had to stop for gas and all that fun stuff. And of course, there was all sorts of, the sadness, because Gracie had her best friend one of her best friends that lived next door, came over to say goodbye. My mom was there, and of course, just all this stuff. My mom started making this habit of saying in the past couple months, or few months, "Don't you remember your brother saying this?" And the first couple times she did it, I kind of blew it off. But then the last time, well, not the last time, one of the times she said something, I think the last time that she really was in my face pushing it, was the same thing, except for I said, "I remember you saying that. I do not remember him saying that." And, so she kind of backed off from it. So my brother and I had this conversation later, and I said, okay, I said, I already know the answer to this, I am pretty sure. I said, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out here just to verify. And I said, you didn't say that, or I said, did you say this to Gracie? And he said, no, I did not. The thing that, or if I didn't say that already, she was trying to insert that my brother told Gracie that they could come back at Christmas if, you know, like if she was upset and really wanted to, they would make it, right? And I didn't remember that happening. And I flat out told her, no, I don't think that happened. I think you are just repeating that because you want to believe it, right? So I mentioned it to my brother, and he's like, yeah, I definitely did not say that. But then, because of how we were raised, you know, he stops and he's like, I'm pretty sure I didn't say that. You know, so he asked Gracie if she remembered him saying that, and she said, you didn't say that. And then she stopped and she got kind of interested, and she said, are we going back? And he said, no. He said, I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't said that, you know. And so it was just that whole thing, but it was like this thing that made us really, I think, sort of key in on this space that that's something that she had done over the years, that because we were conditioned into buying into her bullshit all the time, we usually, okay, like if she said it enough, then we would remember having heard it, but we wouldn't know if it was from the incident that she was saying specifically or just her telling of it, right? So yeah, there's been a whole lot of realizations made on that end with how we felt manipulated over the years, and like how we got to where we were like so easily swayed by stupid shit. And it was just, she would say it enough that it would become something that we heard, but we didn't know if it was, or like we couldn't say that it wasn't from what she said it was. Like we wouldn't have that memory. So it was just like this thing that, like, because she kept saying it, it kind of stuck around, and it's like, well, I remember hearing it, but I don't remember the extent of the backstory for why I've heard it, right? So on that end, anyway, my grandmother, after they got off the phone, because my brother, he knew exactly what it was too. Okay, so I talk a lot about how me and him, my bangs are stupid because I pinned them because I was skating, and now I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they look stupid. So, yeah, oh well. That's worse. Whatever. I need to stop messing with them. So I don't know if maybe that had more to do with Gracie wanting to get off the phone, like the stuff that she did receive from what happened last year. No, I gotta get rid of them. Hold on. All right, they're gone, but like this chunk isn't pinned, so hopefully it stays there. Anyway, so I don't know if like that had something to do with her, you know, like the eagerness to get off the phone once we got over to my grandma's house. But of course, you know, my brother and I have the thing where we send each other I guess it's called the emotionless emoji, and it's got like the closed eyes and then just the line for the mouth. And that's pretty much our go-to for families doing dumb shit. And yeah, just kind of a connecting point on that point, right? So of course they have this conversation, and my grandma starts in on, well, I think she sounded really disappointed that she's not going to be here. So of course I send my brother the emoji. He responds and also sends one back what's got like shadows under its eyes. And so I mentioned that whole thing, right? That it's like, okay, so once she got off the phone with my grandma, I was like, almost immediately that's what they shifted to. And of course my mom's, feeding into all that bullshit and everything because that's what they do. So, and my brother was just like, he said something about she's just really excited about Christmas. She's into the whole Santa thing right now, and watching. She's apparently been watching the Santa tracker for like 2 weeks. So yeah, so she's all into that right now. And he said something about grandma being uninteresting or something, and I was like, okay. It's like, I said, is that our mom, Gracie's grandma, or our grandma that you're specifying? I don't remember what he said on that end because that was at the start of my skate. But it's like, either way, it's like I understand and appreciate both of those options. Actually, I think it might have been more directed to my grandmother. But yeah, anyway, I would have to confirm that again. So, yeah. But anyway, like, I was sitting over at my grandma's house listening to music, and after my aunt and uncle left, I just stood up and was like, I'm gonna go skate, and left, right? Because my dad was starting to do like he does because my grandma's into the hateful bullshit too, the church, the politics, all those things. It's like they just like suck the life out of everybody with these bullshit things, right? So I had heard my dad playing something, and I didn't hear exactly what it was because I did have my music on, but it's like anytime I am anywhere near my dad, I try to have my headphones on or mainly not be around him, right? Like, I have no fondness for that man. When he's gone, he's gone. Hallelujah. I'm whatever. I don't care. And I'm torn. The big thing is the same as I've said with my grandma. If they want me to be at their funerals, they should probably die while I'm here, because as soon as I shift into the next part of my life where I'm not in this town anymore, I don't think I'll be coming back. And I know I've had some moments where I get kind of like, am I going to be that, like, completely disconnected from it? It's like that the whole wishy-washy thing comes back, and it's like I really feel like, yeah, this is the end of me being here, right? So another thing I've been thinking the past couple of days, I was writing early morning a couple days ago, and here's this other thing. Like, I talk about 819 follows me around a lot, right? Counterpart number. The other side of it is I also it's not every time I like 818, right? It's not every time that I see 819, I have already seen 818. But sometimes I see 818 a lot too. And that one, I think, is telling me to make amends with one of my cousins, right? So I've talked about this on here too. When I was in undergrad, my youngest aunt's son, he and my other cousin, the boys were like, they're August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. They're 8 months apart in age, right? So they were in the same grade, and there's been all sorts of issues on that end with those kinds of things, right? There was always like some kind of competition there. But one day my mom was watching the boys, and my aunt came over to pick her son up, which was the there's more lights on now, and I don't know if I don't think somebody's over here, but I don't know. Anyway, there's no cars, but that kind of bothered me. I don't know if anyway, I don't know. I'm gonna stop trying to worry about it. The boys were playing, and for some reason they were throwing like bowling potatoes, and my cousin threw one in the direction of the dogs, and I was in undergrad at the time, I think, and I was having a bunch of my own emotional shit that I was in that time frame of trying to fit the religious box, and trying to make myself fit into something that I didn't fit in was basically the biggest thing. But trying to force myself to believe what religion was telling me I had to believe, in a time where, I already struggled with suicidal ideation a lot. So it was like, it wasn't a good time, right? For me, just in that time frame, was not a good space for me to be. As an example of something that I experienced in that time frame, I think my junior year, I lived off campus, and I had this day where it was like the only time I was ever in that house by myself. I had 5 roommates, and for some reason there was like this 2 or 3 hour gap where I was at the house by myself. And that place made me uncomfortable. I had really weird dreams there. I had one dream where I experienced this sort of sleep paralysis thing when I was coming to, and it's like, I woke up and I was like so freaked out that I couldn't move, but I think it was like I really couldn't move because I think I got back into my body before my body was like able to move. But it's like I felt like I had this like demon breathing down my neck, and it's like I was afraid to do anything. It's like there was just like the sliver of light from my window, because I lived in the basement, so the window was kind of high up, and I had a piece of cardboard in it so nobody could look in on me when I was in my room at night. There was just this little sliver of light that was peeking in around it. It's like it took me, I don't even know how long, but a while before I was like brave enough to reach up over my head and turn the light on. But it felt like something was there breathing down my neck. And it was a very traumatic experience. This other day, in that time frame, or in that year that I lived in that house, there was this, the day that I was there by myself, I went, I had a class, it got done at 3, and then I was walking back home, right? And I have like all these voices, just noise in my head, like all these voices just like laughing and saying things, right? So I think that I'm on the verge of a mental breakdown, honestly. I ended up going into the house, and at one point I just like dropped everything and went straight to the bathroom and had the light on, the door locked, and I was just sitting there with my hands over my ears and crying and singing Sunday school songs because I was trying to make it go away, right? It's like I didn't know what was going on, but I was it was very uncomfortable, right? And I don't know what of the voices were necessarily discernible, if there was any of that, but there was like laughing and mocking and that kind of stuff, right? And I wanted to say like the next week or something, I had one of my psych classes, we listened to this little auditory, like this, it was a cassette tape where the thing on it was what it sounded like to be going through this situation with this auditory hallucination. Sorry. Trip on my words periodically. So we're listening to that, and it's like, I just had this experience. So I was literally feeling like I was having some sort of mental break. And, I was like trying not to allow myself to go that route and to really think that was what was happening. But at the same time, it was like there in the back of my head, right? So in that time frame, usually I tried to keep myself as busy as possible so I didn't think about that kind of stuff, and so I didn't have the opportunities for those kinds of things to happen much. But it freaked me the shit out, right? So, okay, but why did I go there? Wandered off the Gracie stuff. This is why I enjoy writing a little bit better than actually talking, because like when I have the thought where I've wandered enough, I can go back to it and be like, oh yeah, that's where it came from. And now it's like, there was a reason I went there, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, my cousin. I figured it out. Okay. So that's the kind of stuff that I was going through at that point in time, right? I didn't want to talk to anybody about it because I was pretty sure that, they'd be more than happy to lock me up or drug me up or something because I was talking all crazy shit. But it was just a very difficult time frame. My dogs have always been hugely important to me. My dogs are more important to me than my family. Because when my family's been fucking with my head, the dogs were always there not doing that, right? And I'm gonna try to hold the thought that I was going to wander to and finish this. My cousin's birthday, so he and the other cousin were basically bowling potatoes and throwing them at the dogs. And I snapped, and my aunt had just walked in the room, and it was this whole just big disappointing thing where I looked at my cousin and I said, that's why they don't like you. And ever since I said it, like, it's just, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, it's like now that's going to be one of those things that sticks with that kid and that he's going to hear over and over again. Like, the shit that I had along the way with my cousin when I was 8, and the stupid thing happened, and it's like there was always that, like, when something stressful happened, I would hear this thing that was basically a point of wounding in my childhood, and then I would like try to run from it, right? So as soon as the words came out of my mouth, it's just like, fuck, that's going to be the thing that stays with him. That was like 20 years ago. Excuse me. And a lot of that time, when I start thinking about it again, there have been points where it was really one of those things that I was basically using to, try to talk myself into, this is why you don't deserve to live, kind of a thing, right? When I had like all the suicidal ideation that I was struggling with, that was one of those things that I was using as, see, you did this, you're an asshole, right? So when I found out that the counterpart's birthday was the day after my cousin's, it's like, well, that'll make it easy to remember, right? But what I'm finding, and again, it's not every single time. Like, I don't always look at the clock right at, as it flips from 18 to 19. A lot of times I see, 819 or 809, as 0 can be a placeholder, and the others not at all. There are other times I look and see the other number. So what I was realizing a couple days ago was, this is something I need to make amends for before I can fully step into this new version of that sounded like my hawk friend. This new version of my life and existence, and it's something that I need to do before I can fully step into what's coming. Is I need to fix this. I need to make amends and apologize for this thing that happened 20 years ago, right? And then, of course, that brings us to the question of, well, why did it take you so long to do that, right? But like, that's a big part of like the whole healing thing, right? So a big part of me holding on to that thing that happened was to hold it against myself. And for a long time, it was that thing one of those things that I was using to try to support the idea that, I wasn't worthy to exist. There's a span, I mean, there were lots of things that I did in the span of the suicidal ideation years that were specifically to try to force me to go through with it. It's like, now you did this thing, you shouldn't live. Right? So it's just one of those things. But I keep seeing, here lately, I'm seeing a lot more of his birthday. And like, I was making that connection when I was writing the other morning. It's like, this is a thing that I need to suck it up and make amends for in order to fully disconnect from the old way of being. Right? And part of that difficulty in apologizing too is, let's go back to the deal with my family, right? When there was the debacle where my grandfather was gloating to my cousin's fiance when he was meeting the family for the first time that his family doesn't get divorced, as I was back and had been back 2 weeks after leaving Alabama the last time because I was trying to get divorced, right? So of course, my grandpa's running his mouth about that where the fiance can hear it, and I was just there. I was just like, because I'm not a part of this fucking family, right? So it brought everything to a screeching halt. But afterwards, when I was standing in the backyard and just pissed and throwing the ball for Gidge, and he shows up, my grandfather, and comes out into the backyard and says, I didn't mean it like that. And I ignored him because that's not an apology by any means, right? Like that, he just, not sure where that light was coming from. It's like that, it was an apology, right? So I continued ignoring him because it's like I have nothing to say to this man, right? It's like he's literally one of the things that has made it so fucking difficult to separate from my ex, and like that whole situation was incredibly toxic. But like the past couple videos that I've done, one of the things that I've really been kind of navigating through is that point of realizing that in the belief that I was my father's property until I was my husband's property because church. But what it ended up doing was my father resented me. So basically I went from being my father's trash to my husband's trash. Right? Because neither one of them gave a shit about me. But I felt so bad and like a burden to my father because that's how I was raised. Was very aware of his resentment. But it's like then too, it's like of all the beliefs that I bought into as far as allowing people to make me believe I was trash, right? My grandfather's right in there with it, right? And of course, he had to marry my grandmother because he knocked her up. She was like the last or second to last in the friend group that he had dated. Did he fuck all of them? I don't know. But my grandma's the one that got knocked up. So that was the one he had to marry, right? So it's like, it wasn't because they got married out of love, right? That wasn't the thing. They got married because they were fucking around and she got knocked up. And to make it right, they had to get married. Right? So how much resentment was there on that end too, right? But like just thinking about like all these different layers of the resentment that, I felt from all these different connections. Because I've said many times on here, it's like there's not been a single marriage in my lifetime that I could look at and say I want that. I want what they have, right? It was 2020 when I finally ended up in a situation where I found somebody that had that kind of connection. And it was a guy that I worked with at Amazon. And he was responsible for the area that I was in. He the people at his level would kind of fight over me because they knew I was going to work my ass off to make things run smoothly, right? And they could count on me, right? So he was one. He started getting there early and making sure that I was on his side. And of course, he trained me as PG, but I don't remember what that stands for. But basically, I got the training on closing out the trucks, which that was not specifically for that role. That was just something else that I was entrusted with. But also like keeping track of stuff on the computer, and then as any of the lines started backing up, or if they were especially heavy, then I would jump on those and help help load the trucks until it backed off and was going smoother, right? So to keep it from getting too ridiculously chaotic, I would jump in and help fill in, right? Or if there was like a mess that had to be addressed on the floor, and like one time we had to get safety involved, like that was fun. So all those kinds of things. So I was working with him, right? And he was awesome. And of course, I met him in the time frame I was divorcing my belief system too, because that came with divorcing my ex, divorced my belief system, because my belief system was the thing that got me into the toxic relationship and kept me stuck in it, right? Because that's ultimately what religion wants to do, is keep you from being able to have a life that you could be happy with, right? It wants to keep you from being happy. So it's literally set up to suck the life out of you, right? That's what religion does, right? Anyway, so Tim was awesome to work with, and I think he was like late 40s, early 50s, and his wife worked there too, and he just adored her. And like anytime he went to talk about his wife, he had like the best things to say. And it was one of those connections that's like, that's not a common thing, right? So, and I really appreciated that, because Tim was the one that, after I left Amazon, it was like 3 weeks later, I got this really strong urge to contact Tim. It's like, I need to check in with Tim, see how things are going. And so I sent him a message. It was Tuesday. We had this nice little conversation, and basically the company was still fucking him over on promoting him, and then promoting instead the people who were basically shitty at their jobs, and nobody liked them, but they would get promoted over Tim because Tim did so good in his job, so they wanted to keep him there, right? So he literally was getting fucked over because the company didn't want to help him get into a better situation because he was doing so well at that level. So, he was fighting with them on that still. And he said that, like, one of the things was when he asked why they were pissing around with, not wanting to promote him, and they, told him he didn't have this, and this, and he's like, bullshit, and, had evidence of the things that he had done that showed he did have those things. He said he felt positive that they were finally actually considering the promotion, but they were gonna like come back to it in January, I think. I contacted him on Tuesday. on Friday he had a massive heart attack and died. Right? So, like, that was the one thing when I went to his funeral. There was another girl that I had been working with, that she was younger than me, had just started recently, but she, it's like we were part of the group that Tim was basically taking under his wing to help us be better. And, like, the way he saw it was basically, as I rise, you rise kind of a thing. It's like, we're doing this together, right? Like, that's a true leader, right? That's what he was he was trying to prepare people and to help people get better, and so we could all make positive shifts together, rather than what a lot of people do is fuck you over and, do whatever going against you just to, so they can benefit and you can flounder, right? He wasn't that kind of guy, right? So anyway, me and this girl go and meet up at his funeral, and like, that was their visitation, and that was the biggest thing that I appreciated about him when I got to, like, when we got over to talk to his wife, because it's like, I've never talked to this woman, I don't know what to say to her. It's like, that was the thing that I could say was, this is the first, I said, the relationship that you guys have, I said, this is the first time in my life that I've ever encountered somebody who has felt the way about their spouse that I would want to have a relationship modeled after, right? It's like, that that has not existed in my life before this, right? So, yeah, anyway. Okay, went from the cousin, went to, how did I get to there? I had a text message pop up from my mom asking if I'm okay. So it's like, just keep your ass there. I will be. They do that periodically. And they don't know about my videos, and we're not trying to get them to know about that. But at the same time, it's like every now and then something comes up where it's like they know that something's going on, but they don't know what it is, but they know they don't like me because this whole thing with the videos has completely changed how I deal with them. And I'm more willing to say the things that I wouldn't say previously in order just to keep the peace. It's like, I'm not worried about that shit now. So if you're watching your fucking Charlie Kirk propaganda kind of bullshit, I'm gonna say the thing, right? She had some hate-filled pastor that was spouting off about basically accusing the trans population of being the reason that that asshat died. And I was just like, that dude's exactly where he needs to be, since all he was doing was putting hate in the world. Like, he had nothing to offer this world. He can go. Right? That's kind of how I feel about them too. If you're only putting the negative shit out all the time, I don't fucking care. Right? This is kind of that that idea of what's coming to mind immediately is live by the sword, die by the sword. So if you're specifically, he said the thing about a certain number of gun deaths are acceptable to keep gun rights, right? And then he died by it. So it's like, I failed to see how that's a problem. That sounds like he brought it on himself. That sounds like the thing he said about it should happen, because that was in response to, I think, like a school shooting or something, right? So since he said the thing, it only makes sense that and is fair that that's his karma, that would be his demise, right? But yeah, there's a whole lot of that shit in that house. And it's like, now I'm saying the things, right? They don't like that I say the things, and that I will bitch about their fascist dictator that they support so well, or so much. And yeah, anyway, I'm not going there. I've already wandered there a little bit. We're wandering back. 444. So yeah, so like, they don't know what's going on, but they know they don't like me. is the biggest thing, which, newsflash, they never have. Okay, I was thinking about this point a lot too. I have mentioned on here multiple times that when I was like 12, there was a bunch of stuff that was going wrong for me, right? So when I was 7, my great-grandfather died. When I was he died in March, and then my dog had to be put down in October. And then at some point we went on a family vacation to Florida, and I almost drowned in the ocean. So like there were these traumatic things that happened in a short span of time. And like with those 3 things, right? Just those 3 specific points right there. Then along comes my cousin who decides he wants to enlighten me and, tries to enlighten me and ends up having this thing or the stupid shit that he follows me around with my entire school career, right? But he was able to fuck with my head at a time when everything was going wrong. So with all of that, I got to a point where it was like, basically, if God hates me, I hate God, right? It's like I've never had any doubt, or had any question that I believed that there was something more out there and that some God, whatever God was real. But I felt like God hated me, right? Because that's what my life was setting me up for. So when I was 12, I basically invited the demons in, right? And so this is something that I've been thinking about here lately too, because it's like I've expressed that point on here several times, but I don't think I really have followed it through too much. But basically, it's like what I feel like that was okay. Like, I mentioned when I was 8 and my cousin had the bullshit that he was doing, and then my grandparents moved up here from Oklahoma again. They had been transferred out there when I was 6 weeks old, and they moved back after my great-grandfather died, and then everything became about my grandfather's death, right? That was the obsession was his death, and we had to prevent him from dying, was basically the thing. I remember this moment where I was in this space. We were over at my grandma's house, and it felt like I was the elephant in the room, right? It's like there's this thing that nobody's willing to talk about, and like I've been shamed in all these ways, and it's like that was the big thing. It's like the family was just like pouring all this guilt and shame on me, and that was basically like this soul crushing thing, because I was this little 8-year-old kid that things were going really wrong for me, and nobody was trying to like help me through that process. It was just kind of at my great-grandfather's funeral, my mom asked me if I wanted to touch his hand. I was not given any kind of warning what death was, or like what it meant, or any of this stuff. So I said yes, because like I used to sit on my great-grandpa's lap all the time, right? They're like, I would sit on his lap, and they'd have like whatever show on TV, and he and I would eat cheese puffs out of like these really old Tupperware containers, right? So like the orange one was my favorite, and then the yellow, but there was also brown and green, right? So it's just like one of those things that like I always, he was like one of my favorite people, right? And part of that too, I think, was also that, he was a Pisces, so we had that water element in common, and we were pretty tight. I loved him. But then I wasn't given any kind of warning about what this meant, this funeral thing. I was asked if I wanted to touch his hand, and I touched his hand and spent the entire rest of the day bawling. And like the one thing, it's like my mom took pride in this point that she never heard such gut-wrenching sobs in her life. But it was like a source of pride because I was appropriately traumatized, essentially, at this thing that had happened because nobody warned me about what it was, right? And I'm wandering again. Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, the demons. But I remember sitting in the living room over at my grandma's house after this thing, and of course, it's like all the guilt and shame, they're like pouring on me all the time. It's like I've just done this horrible thing, and I'm ruined, right? And I've talked about it on here before too. It was like I was communicating with my grandfather's demons, or like they were looking at me and responding to me being there. And it was basically like, as he looked at me, like what I heard was, she's going to be the end of us. She has to be stopped. It's like, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that was. And, it's like I felt it all the way through, right? And there's this big soul-crushing thing for this little 8-year-old kid that's had all this traumatic shit going on, and, and is now suddenly very, very aware that, my family hated me, right? It's like that's the biggest thing is like, I always knew my mom hated me. And yet for some reason, that whole fucking trauma bond bullshit that brings me back to, do I need to disconnect completely? Like again, my father, I have absolutely no problem saying, when that man's gone, I'm not going to miss him. I look forward to the day that I do not have to deal with him any further. Whether that's me moving away from here, or whether that's him kicking the bucket before I go. I don't fucking care. But my mom, for some reason, there is still that struggle. But the point was, when I invited the demons in, basically, what I feel like it was an amplification of this energetic parasite stuff, right? So they latched onto my energy, trying to suck the absolute life out of me as much as they possibly could. Most of my channels dedicated to me talking about stories with the jacked up family and, my mom hating me and all this stuff, right? That it's not new stuff. It's stuff that I'm unpacking different layers of in this space, but it's not really new stuff. But there's still that part of me that for some reason struggles with the idea of fully disconnecting from my mom as well. And never having like another conversation with her after I move away. And I don't know if it's just that that I've been so conditioned by that guilt over the years that it's a tripping point compared to with my father, where it's just like, I don't fucking care. But like I feel like that's the biggest point is like when I invited the demons in, it feels like it was a direct amplification of all their toxicity latching onto my system to try to suck my life force energy out of me. So that's also largely why I have so much to unpack in this space. Okay, so another thing that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to try to keep this one kind of short because it's, 54 minutes. I'll probably end on this point. I've talked on here about how one of the things that I've had this vision that it's come up a few times where as I'm talking my way through the videos, is this vision where each of the videos is like a section of a lotus petal, right? And it's basically as I'm telling the stories, it's an unfurling of the Lotus, right? So, that's a theme that I keep coming back to. And the other day, there's just kind of this elaboration on it. I can't help where the visions go, y'all. They just kind of go where they go. But what I saw was being in this space with my counterpart, and there was this moment where basically I asked him to take his shirt off, right? And it was just admiring him and, the physical expression of him, and like walking around and just basically taking him in, right? And like I went all the way around him, and then basically curled myself up against him, right? Like under his arm. And there was just this callback to this Lotus moment. And what I kind of feel like it is, okay, like I've talked to, there's a lot of stuff with like the feminine has to go first on this whole unpacking journey, right? And so, I've mentioned the as above, so below, right? So when one of my early connections that I made was once I started tuning into my heart, it's like I saw myself in this much bolder expression, right? So like I'm used to be the crab version of me where I go into like hiding at everything that's uncomfortable. But then to shift into this other space where I'm moving from my heart more, and it's more bold and expressive. And in that connection, I linked up with a thought that the as above, so below. So when I was moving from my heart, it's because that's, my Leo Venus, syncs up to his Leo sun, right? So, I made that connection of as above, so below. So then, like, as I'm doing the unpacking on my end of things, which obviously has been heavy, and there's been a whole lot of me trying to hide because that's what my life taught me that I needed to do and all that bullshit. It goes along with that whole thing. Anyway, so in this vision, like, I just kind of like curl myself up against him and, his arms around me, and it's just like this, it kind of just stays in this space, right? This seeing of him, but also not being fully ready to be revealed, kind of a thing. But then if we're connecting the as above, so below on the opposite end of that, where I have to do all this work and unpack some of the shit that keeps me hiding, then as I unpack it, that's part of what stirs things to life in his heart space, right? Because that's where we're connected, as above, so below. So then, like, I'm seeing this like Lotus space, or I'm seeing this where I've kind of curled up against him, and well, basically, I feel like the connection's close, and what it came through as in the vision was it went from like this It was like that was, basically the Lotus working on blooming within him, right? The heart space, because like all the stories that I've had to unpack here have, been a part of a petal, right? So then um it's just really silly, I guess. Okay. So the biggest thing that keeps coming up is like, I feel like I'm finally at a point where I'm ready for this connection and whatever the fullness of the connection is supposed to be. And like one minute I had, I think it was kind of a dream that I was waking up from, because it's like I stayed in that space, that kind of curled up space for a little while. But then like as I was waking up the next morning, it was like it was like I shifted, and then it was just like devour me. It's like to be fully seen, to finally be ready for whatever all of that means, right? To unpack all of that and all the layers of this thing. And just like how it came out was devour me. But then like when I was sitting with it, it was like realizing that, where I kind of curled into him, it's like it was like the last shift of sitting in this space of comfort, before really being ready to emerge and to be seen, right? And I actually pulled some cards the other day, and one of them was like Ace of Swords, and the next one was the Star. And both of them, like it was the Mystic Mondays Tarot deck, both of them spoke to, you're ready to be seen. It's time, right? So it's like I have this vision, and then I'm also pulling these cards. I think I pulled the cards like the night where I saw this thing happen. But then as I was waking up, it was like shifting into this other space of finally ready to really be seen. So the Lotus got me there. So how the hell? And I don't know, like part of what's happening is like I find myself more inclined to comment in more spaces, like on social media and whatnot, and more inclined to speak up against like my family and their bullshit, right? And just like some of these different layers. But yeah, anyway, I thought about texting my cousin to get that handled, and then it's like, then is that cheating because Christmas is tomorrow and I could just do it in person? But I mean, I don't want to do it around like the parents or grandma or anyone like that. It's like other cousins, whatever. But it still needs to be done. So I don't know if it'll be tomorrow or if I'll text him afterwards, like Friday or something. It will be this week because that needs to be handled. I just need to, like, that's the biggest thing, is I need to fix what needs to be fixed on this end so I can release it and leave this space having dealt with the loose ends, right? It's like that seems kind of bad calling my cousin a loose end, but so that's not what I mean. But that is something that, as long as it's around for me to feel bad about and to ever regret, then it's always going to be something that's linking me to the old version of me and to the past life that I'm ready and willing to disconnect from, right? So that's going to happen this week. Now, whether it's in person or in text, I don't know, but one or the other, it'll happen. But yeah, like I keep having this really strong sense. It's like this is the last family thing like this that I'll be doing, right? Like the last holiday with these people, right? And I spent a lot of time talking about that whole, the basically religion is antichrist. Right? It literally is. Christianity is the literal antichrist that they keep trying to force people into submitting to what they want by telling you there's this thing to fear, but they are the thing that they're trying to force you to fear, right? So religion is completely that. And religion, it's very much a big part of like my family and like the existence here. And so it's like that's a big part of why I know that I mean ultimately why I am done here, right? So like whatever, I mean the stuff with my mom, I think that's just gonna, I don't know how it's gonna play out, but I'm pretty confident that I will be disconnected for good, especially considering that a big part of the shifting into the new space is also because it's about time for things to be handled like on a worldwide scale with the awakening process, right? The whole transition to the Christ consciousness is the thing, right? So they throw around the word Christ a lot in the religion, but they really have no idea what the Christ consciousness and what the truth of the Christ message was, right? And that was something that I was thinking about when I was skating too, was it's like just all the ways that like religion says these things, but that religion is specifically the thing trying to line up for all the worst of the worst, because I mean, they're the gatekeepers of hell. They're the gatekeepers of hell that are trying to keep everybody in fear and afraid to step into the Christ consciousness space, right? So it's like, I'm very much part of this whole process on healing the feminine, but just healing the planet, really. It's like that's something that anybody who would be inclined to watch my stuff anyway is going to probably be in that group, right? But it's like this space with my family, they're very much not in that, right? They're on the other side of it, where basically those energetic parasites, where every time you start to try to shift, they like start picking at your life force and trying to force you down into their level again, right? Because they don't want you to ascend. They don't want you to get to the next level of being. And, my family has, they're pretty attached to their beliefs and whatnot. So I think that's the biggest thing is I'm thankful that I'll be getting to skate tomorrow and skate the family out of my system. But that's the biggest thing. It's like they are stuck on their beliefs, and their beliefs are largely the thing. The beliefs are the energetic parasite, ultimately, the thing that very much is keeping them from being able to step into the new way of being. But that said, I'm going to stop talking. As always, I appreciate you. Until next time, see ya.